Here, go to camera. Here.
Oh, it sounds terrible, but yes, we can hear it.
Hey, sorry everybody. It's a little off. We're having a quick little microphone technical difficulty, so it's going to sound a little roomy for a second. Sorry for the.
Turn on this one because you're blurry.
Yeah, sorry. We're there. So sorry, the microphone's off for just a second. We have to sort out what's going on with it. It's a little grumpy.
It literally was just.
It was just working. Now it's not. So we're gonna go here for just a second. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Geared Up. This is our weekly live broadcast where we talk about lighting, we talk about gear, we talk about lighting techniques, and we talk about our microphones failing. So, with that being said, we're going to dive in. I'm actually going to grab something too while we're talking for just a second to see if we can clean this up as we're on the fly.
I'm just going to keep it on.
That's fine. We'll leave it there for just a split second, but let's see if we can clean this up while we're on the fly.
Yeah.
So, again, we're on the wide shot. Yeah. So today we're talking about soft grids. This is what you can see right here attached to this 1x4 strip box. And the cool thing about soft grids, honestly, soft grids I think are a pretty underutilized. It's just me setting up the microphone. Soft grids are a pretty underutilized light shaping tool as far as I'm concerned. So here, this should clean this up really quick. Let's go here.
Sorry, friends.
This is why we have backups.
Thank you for doing that.
No problem. You might just have to re-clip that in.
I got it.
Can you hear me with it?
Hold on.
I just want to make sure that we have sound here.
Sure we're good to go.
Can you hear me just fine? Did that clean that audio up?
And I'm just trying to jump off. Check, check, check.
Check, check.
Oh, there we are.
We're back. All right, cool.
All right, friends, we're good.
Where one mic fails, one mic prevails. Cool. So today we're talking about soft grids. And as far as I'm concerned, soft grids are an incredibly underutilized light shaping tool. When you're playing with smaller soft boxes, it's maybe not so apparent that soft boxes have the tendency to kind of throw light everywhere. And it's just because the nature of the modifier, right? It's a big light source. The point of a soft box is to be this big diffused light source. It's trying to blast as much light in a large area as it can. Soft grids are going to help control that light source. So I think one of the misconceptions that a lot of people have when it comes to using a soft or a grid in general, but especially a soft grid on something like a softbox, is that it's going to make the light harder. That's not true. So we know in some of our talks here in the past that the size of the modifier in relationship to the subject is what's going to dictate how hard or soft that light's going to be. So if I have an Apple box that I'm kicking and a broken microphone and a broken leg, so if I have this soft box here, this 1x4 strip box, whether or not I put a soft grid on it hasn't changed the size of that modifier. And if the placement of that modifier on my subject hasn't changed, the size in relationship to my subject has not changed. So the softness will not change. What's happening is a grid's just doing what a grid does. It takes the light that's going like this and it puts it right here. It points it right where you want it. And soft grids are really, really cool, again, because as modifiers start to get really, really big, and I've decided that today we were just gonna break out the biggest softbox that I have, my 4x6, and we're gonna throw a grid on that and show you kind of what it looks like with and without. You're gonna see how nice it is to have something like a grid on the front of your softbox. So again, grids do not make your light source harder. What a lot of people perceive as the light source becoming more hard is actually a contrast increase. And that's, again, because the light is being kept off of the surrounding areas. It's not bouncing off the ceilings. It's not hitting the background. It's just staying right where you want it. So contrast increase, not a hardness increase, because the modifier size and shape in relation to the subject has not changed. Pretty easy stuff. So we're going to have...
Hey, I have one quick question.
Oh, someone has a question.
Dennis is asking, love watching this show, was wondering what the dimensions of your studio are.
Oh, Dennis, thank you for watching. So studio size, it's a 12-foot seamless, and I probably have another 3 foot to play with, so I guess about 15 foot wide. And then lengthwise, we're probably 20 to 22 25. Feet, maybe, somewhere between 20 and 25. So yeah, it's about 15 by like 20, 25. And, you know, where you're looking at me from, you're right against the wall. So what you're seeing is the size of the actual space itself. And then Kate's kind of over there in the little netherworld space that with the computer. Fun stuff. So with that being said, what we're gonna do, I mean, we're already gridded up, but maybe we should actually take the before shots. Yeah, I think we should take the before shots. So one thing to know about grids, in the world of RFI, grids have a direction, okay? So you can actually put them on backwards. You don't want to do that. So I don't know how to show you this other than I can show you with, well, yeah, it's a big grid, so it doesn't really make sense to hold it in front of everybody, but I'll show you with what you would be looking for with this OCF grid. The upside for the OCF stuff is it works on a channel system, so it actually goes around the lip, whereas the RFI stuff Velcros on the inside. But to help you with your RFI grids, what you want to do is all of our grids have these little tags on them. Can they?
Do you want me to go
Yeah, just go closer really fast so you can kind of see. Yeah. So there's like this little tag on it. It's not the biggest tag in the world. Generally what it does is it says like RFI soft grid. This says OCF soft grid because it's for an OCF. And then it says the size and the degree of light spread. So generally the soft grids are 50 degrees. This is no different. So just you want the tag facing out whenever you're using the RFI, when you're installing the RFI soft grids. If it's facing in, your grid's backwards. So cool. So let's take this 1x4 off. We're gonna take the 1x6. Yeah, I'm ready for you. We're gonna take the 1x6 off. Also, this gave me an excuse too because I've had someone asking if they could see the 1x6 with a soft grid.
I am about to
Cool. Soft grid. Very cool. So one thing that a lot of people they always ask questions too about soft grids pricing. Soft grids aren't the cheapest modifier in the world. That's because you can do it one of two ways. So like if you find yourself a cheap grid, generally what's happened is the corners, each one of these places where the grids are made are glued together. It's really, really kind of a cheap way of making it. They fall apart, especially if you're using lights with halogen modeling lights. That heat can heat up that glue over time, or that glue can just kind of wear out over time, and your grids will fall apart. The right way of doing it is the way that we do it, but it's also something that has been kind of patented, so you have to like license it, is you actually sew every single corner individually. It's a really, really hard process. It's really difficult to do. It's very time consuming, but that's the right way of making a soft grid. And that way you know that the soft grid won't fall apart over time. The seams will stay tight and good stuff like that. So cool, so we're gonna have Kate come in. We're gonna take the shot with all the same camera settings as that. Nothing's gonna change. The power settings aren't gonna change. Nothing's gonna change. So we have a 4x6 RFI softbox here. This is gonna be our main. And then we're gonna have a rim light, which is the OCF 1x4, so what you see right there. So that'll be the rim light lighting the backside of Kate. So there's a little bit more, there's some light from the other side separating. So here we go. Make sure we got focus. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh, I got you off the screen a little bit. Oh, let's turn it a little bit more. You know what? I kicked the Apple box a second ago because I was doing everything else. So we go 3, 2, 1.
I failed.
You fell. One more time. one more time without falling.
These are very high shoes, okay?
You know what? You're a very talented person.
You're next.
Yes, I'll wear them. 3, 2, 1. So cool. So as you can see with that light right there, it's a big modifier, right? So there's a ton of light coming from this 4x6. It's bouncing all over the room. There's not a ton of contrast in the shot. The background's pretty light. The kicker is still doing the rim light's doing a really good job of keeping Kate separated, but I don't want all this light on the backdrop. I want it to kind of fall off. I want the light just on Kate. So what can we do? Maybe a soft grid, I don't know. Let's see. And I'm pretty sure if you looked right as we were setting up, you probably saw what the image is gonna wind up looking like as we do this. But it'll be nice to see the A-B comparison between using a soft grid and not using a soft grid. So again, with the RFI style, you want to find the tag. So the tag is here, which means the soft grid needs to go this way. And so the easiest way of doing it, with the Velcro versions like this is to put the corners in place first. So I'm also very short, so this doesn't work for me that well. So you just pop it into the corners, and then from there you can put the rest of the grid in place. And then the OCF grid is much simpler, much simpler. It's like I said, it kind of works on a channel system. So it kind of just slides into place. And one of the things that's also nice about the OCF one, so I don't know if you can kind of see this with the 4x6, but it has a little bit of slack in it. It kind of bubbles out a little bit. It's not that big of a deal, but you know, some people are, you know, I don't think it does anything to the quality of the light, but it, you know, might bother you. I don't know. So, but the nice thing about the OCF version is because of this channel system, it just slides right over the top, and the rods on the end hold tension on the grid. It's really nice. So.
Hey, so while I have you,
yeah.
Pete and Joe have a question. Just curious as to the difference between the OCF and the RFI line of products, and does it make a difference if I will be using a B10?
So the couple of differences. So they were asking, I don't know if you popped the question up on the screen.
Do it with the Vimeo.
Oh, gotcha. It's a Vimeo question. Gotcha. So someone was asking, what's the difference between OCF and RFI? As I'm doing this, I know I also have like this really loud plasticky sound like in the microphone. I apologize. But so the OCF was designed to be really lightweight and kind of fast to set up. That being said, because of the lightweight materials, it can't handle the heat from the halogen modeling light of like a D2 or a D1 or a Pro or a Acute head. So what can happen is the high heat can actually start to damage the modifiers. That's kind of the big kicker with it. The upside for the RFI stuff is you have a lot more options as far as sizes, shapes, and like accessories and stuff like that for your soft boxes. The downside is it takes a little bit of elbow grease to put the soft. It's a traditional soft box with a traditional speed ring, so it takes a little more elbow grease to get them put together, especially once you start using things like the 4x6. But they're just a little more robust. The insides are made to just handle that higher heat. So it's kind of essentially what it comes down to. So you ready to do this?
Yeah.
So let's take the same shot. Nothing's changed other than we have grids on the lights now. I did push this out of the way a little bit, so let's see. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. So just off the bat, you're gonna see when the photo changes, how much light is not hitting the background anymore. It's got a little more mood to it. It's what I was going for. Can we take one more shot?
Yeah.
Cool. Here we go.
Control where those hands are gonna go.
Yeah, I was about to say that backhand. Yeah, that backhand looks a little wonky. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Very cool. Let's do it one more time. I'm gonna bring my crop down a little bit because I think you're kind of at the bottom of the frame. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Much cooler. Very cool. So, but you can see with that right there how much the grid is keeping the light right where we want it, keeping it off of where we don't want it, and it looks a lot better. We still have all the same softness that we were going to have from the 4x6. We're going to pull both photos up here in just a second to compare them, but we still have all the same softness that you were going to get from the 4x6 and the 1x4, but now we've just aimed that light more. So even though you still have this big gigantic modifier, the light's coming here and not going there. Like it's not kicking out towards the background, which is really cool. So that being said, let me pull this computer up here, and if you have any questions, ask.
Yeah, please feel free to
again, they're soft grids. It's not, you know, I don't expect there to be a ton of questions with it because it's a pretty simple concept. Grids are grids, but I want you to be able to see kind of top and bottom what we have going on here. So do a comparison. Let's go full screen. There we go. So nothing, oh, blurring out here, let me kind of, we're good?
There we are.
Cool. So as Kate starts to pull up the computer here for you to see, nothing changed other than the grids. The power levels didn't change. The position of the lights didn't change. My camera settings did not change. The only thing is we're taking that light and we're pointing it right to where we want. So we're starting to get, again, something a little more contrasty here. I honestly, probably for this shot, would probably bring the power up just a little bit on the image with the grids on there. Just because I want a little bit more light here on the face. But
my arm could also be blocking the light.
Yeah, maybe. Could very easily be. When there's stuff that's kind of moving in a shot, you know, anything can kind of block it. But the cool thing is such a simple modifier that you can take and you modify your modifier with. So you can take this and just point your light right where you want it. You can keep, it's really, really good for, you know, I use it a lot for background, especially if you're in a smaller space. This isn't the tiniest space in the world, but it's not that big of a studio. And so the grids are really, really nice because, again, you have way more control over these big, gigantic modifiers in a place where the light's gonna bounce around a lot. So
Peter Gunner was wondering, how would it compare with a magnum instead of a 4x6 and grid?
how would a magnum compare to a 4x6 and a grid? I mean, it would just be a harder light source. So like if we go in here, Kate, we're going to extreme close up on your nose. So
Fun.
I'm going to zoom in here. So the difference if we went with something like a magnum is these shadows here are going to be much harder. So you can see the nose shadow here is nicely feathered, right? Even here on the shot that's a touch darker, like I said, I would probably bump the power up just a little bit. Even that right there is this nicely feathered nose shadow. So if I go to a magnum reflector, I could, with a grid, I would still get something that looked relatively close to this, except for it's going to be just a much harder light. So it's going to be a little more snappy. The shadows are going to be a lot sharper on the lines, especially if I start going into stuff like if I put like an A2 with the click grid on there, because it's much smaller, it's going to start to sharpen it up even more. So you could easily go with the Magnum. It's just going to be a harder light source, whereas this is giving you that control, but with softer light sources.
James is asking, are you pointing the light or are you really blocking the spill?
Am I pointing, James, am I pointing the light at her, or am I blocking the spill at her, or am I blocking the spill at the background? So when it comes to the background, yeah, I'm blocking the spill from the background. That's kind of what the grid does. So she never changed her position. So she was here, kind of doing her thing. I would kind of turn back. And the way that I'm looking at this, I am dead on to the softbox. So there's nothing being blocked when it comes to her, other than any extraneous light that could be leaking out, right? So really, this is just doing that. It's just blocking spill light. It's controlling the light, keeping it from kicking to the background, the ceiling, and all over the place. Again, it's one of the reasons the contrast is going to increase, because there's less light bouncing around. I hope that answered, James.
Cool. And I don't see any other questions as of yet. If you have anything else, pop
Cool.
it in here before we.
Again, it's not a super heavy subject. It's grids in a larger form. I think some of the things you just have to remember, again, for people who might just be tuning in, the grid's not going to change the hardness of your light. What you'll perceive as what a lot of people perceive as a hardness change is an increase in contrast. So you're going to maintain the same softness. You're just going to have some more control. Depending on the grid you go with, if it's an RFI grid, you need to make sure that the tag is out, because grids have a direction they have to go on. If you're using something like the OCF grid, like on the 1x4, you don't have to worry about that, because it only goes on the softbox in one direction. But that 50-degree beam spread from the soft grid, you want to make sure it's the right direction. So, and all of our soft grids are 50 degrees, no matter which one you get it for. If you go with the OCF for an OCF box or an RFI for an RFI box, that 50 degree is kind of standard as far as the light spread goes. But other than that, try one out, especially if you're using things like 5-foot octaves, 4-foot octaves. The 4x6, this thing's awesome on the 4x6. This is one of my favorite soft boxes, and having a grid for it just helps me, again, control a lot more of my stuff. So, any other questions? Are we good?
Let's see. The eyes sink completely into the darkness. Can this work with another grid or maybe a larger meshes?
So again, I think the grid's going to pull some of the power back, just because there's a lot of light hitting negative negative fill color, so black is going to absorb some of that light. Let's take one more shot real fast, Kate, and what we'll do is we'll bump the power up.
And then also Jim is asking, can you compare the feathering of the light to, can you compare feathering?
You want to compare feathering it to using a grid. I gotcha. Yeah, we'll do that.
Sorry, let me get you so you
Totally fine. So we're going to do a power bump on the softbox. So currently, both shots that we took with that, let's see with the Connect Pro, both shots of that were at a power level of 6.5. Let's take it up. I don't know. Let's take it up. I'm going to go up a full stop and just see what happens. Let's go to 7.5. Cool. And then I'm still pointed down. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. So there you go. So that's the shot with a little bit more power. So with that increase of power, you're going to get, with the increase of power, there's going to be a little bit more light hitting the background. Now, what we can do is, again, we're going to feather it. We're going to feather it without the grid just to see what the difference is without the grid. So I think we'll feather it with the grid, and then we'll take the grid off, and so you have all three. So now let's take this. Just make sure we're out of the way here. Cool. There's a lot of stuff to move here, so I just gotta make sure I don't knock anything over.
know, this thing is enormous.
Yeah. I'm gonna put a sandbag on it as I'm moving it. Okay. So for anyone who is wondering what feathering is, it's essentially, instead of having the light pointed directly at the subject, you're kind of shooting the light past the subject and letting the light from the edge of it light your subject.
Right here.
So I'm not done feathering it just yet. I've still got to move it a little bit more. There's a hidden bag under here.
Do you want me to maintain my same position?
I think so.
Okay.
And we'll just work through it with the light. So the tough side is I'm fighting a couple of cables, so bear with me for a split second. There we go. Let's go here. So now we're feathered with a grid. This should make the background, for anyone who's wondering, go much darker. So you ready to go, Kate?
Yeah.
Cool. Softbox is slightly in my shot, but it's okay. I'll reposition a touch. Here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1. So this time, we're gonna take one more of these. This time, because the softbox is now feathered, I need you to kind of cheat your nose a little bit more towards the softbox.
Okay.
Yeah. Try, like, split the difference from where you were looking.
Like here.
Come back this, right there, right, if you can live right there. All right. 3, 2, 1. That's better. So now you can see the background is going to get a lot darker. And so let's see what happens when we just take the grid off. And so that way we can see a true feather versus a grid. Cool. Cool.
Same with my.
Same thing, yeah, kind of facing the same. Although you could probably come back a little bit more now because the grid's not going to chop out so much of the light. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. That was a lot more light. Hold on, let me pull that back to the 6.5. Here we go. 3, 2. Actually, no, that's actually a lot closer to you. Let me pull it back a little bit more. 3, 2, 1. So cool. So here, I'll pull up all three of those. We can talk about those first. Oh, no, come back to your laptop. I'll pull up all three of those and we can compare. Oh.
Right. Sorry.
Cool. And I keep unplugging my laptop. I think I have enough juice. I'm not going to worry about it that much. Cool. So let's go here. So that's feathered with grid, and then
We're coming at you, friends.
so let's go before I bumped the power. Oh, what did I just do? Hold on, let's redo all of this stuff because I just messed myself up. Okay, so go here, 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 and here. So this right here is the final shot with just the softbox feathered. So there's no grid on it, so it's pulled to the side and the light's kind of shooting past Kate. Whereas this right here is the feathered shot, but with the grid, and you can tell that the grid does make a difference. So if you just look at the extra light that's hitting the background, you are still taking some of that light away from the background and keeping it directed at your subject more. Then when we start getting over to the shots of the direct, I don't know that I chose the best one for the direct shot. Let's go. So I think this was that last one. I'm just trying to keep up with everything. I think this was that last one where we bumped the power because someone was like, you know, you kind of start to lose the eyes a little bit. So you can see the eyes have started to come back. This one with, this one right here is just the feathered with the grid, I believe. Now I'm starting to lose myself. I'm starting to confuse my own self. I know, all right, let's reset this. I'm confused now. I'm thoroughly confused. I know the end shot here, if we're just gonna talk about grid versus no grid with feathering, the grid makes a difference. It just absolutely does. Now, can you get some of the benefits of a grid with feathering? Yes, you can. Do you get all the benefits? No, you don't. And that's okay. You get to make those creative decisions. So feathering is going to help direct the light off of whatever you don't want it on. Downside is you're not going to get as direct of a light source. Upside is feathering is nice too because you don't have to worry about hot spots. So I feather, generally when I do my feathering, I do it with umbrellas. I don't feather my softboxes all that much. And so I don't know if it's because a lot of our softboxes have this recessed front, so it kind of has a cutoff line. But I generally tend to feather my umbrellas with my diffusion panels over it more than I do my softboxes. But you can get something relatively similar, not the exact same. And if you combine the two, you can get even more of the look. So hopefully that was good info there for that. After I, like I said, thoroughly confused my own self.
No, it's cool.
Anything else, or are we good?
Jim says thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Jim. Thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah.
Cool.
We're good.
That was super fun. Thank you all so much for bearing with us, hanging out, having a good time talking about soft grids. Again, it's not really heavy. I just wanted people to see who wanted that visual representation of what a soft grid does to your softbox to have that. So in the meantime, have an awesome rest of your week. If you have any questions, any suggestions, I know on the Pro Photo Share the Light user group on Facebook, and I think even on our website, we now have you can send us suggestions, like a suggestion box. If you have any suggestions.
That's where this one came from, right?
This one didn't come from the suggestion box, but it did come from a friend of mine who had been asking to see something about this. So this live is completely inspired by a friend who said she would love to see the soft grid on a 4x6. So again, if you want to see anything in particular, if you want anything demoed, let me know. I'll add it to the list of stuff. We have a whole bunch of outside content coming up, which is going to be really fun, especially with the new A2 and the Magnum. So in the meantime, have an awesome rest of your week. Let me know if you have any questions. Peace out.